The idea that the Great Depression was finally brought to an end by the onset of World War II has been a staple of history textbooks, documentaries, and various war propaganda for decades. This myth continues to be perpetuated to the present day.
In 1943, with the federal government spending more on defense than it had ever spent on relief or public works, America finally reached full employment. Roosevelt announced that Dr. New Deal had become Dr. Win the War. The Great Depression, which had held 1/3 of a nation in poverty for more than a decade, was over. Roosevelt's New Deal had changed the country, but it was the war that brought prosperity to a generation of Americans.
The idea that war is good for the economy is, needless to say, a fallacious argument, which itself is based on incorrect economic data.
By definition, military production output is not real wealth. Wars destroy wealth rather than creating it. In fact, if you look at the figures for American economic activity and you strip out the war effects, as people like Robert Higgs have shown, what you can only conclude is that in fact the Great Depression does not really end until 1947 or 1948. And that the war simply conceals or covers up the continuing low level of real wealth-creating economic activity in the United States.
The idea that the economic activity surrounding militarization represents a net economic gain is called the broken window fallacy. This fallacy was named and identified by French economist Frédéric Bastiat in his 1850 essay, That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Not Seen, in which he imagines the case of a shopkeeper whose careless son breaks a pane of glass in his shop window. In Bastiat's example, that which is seen is that the glazier comes, performs the task of fixing the window, and receives 6 francs for his effort. Onlookers to the scene believe that the economy has actually been bolstered by this act of destruction, since 6 francs have been spent into it that otherwise would not have been. But Bastiat notes that what is important is not what is seen, but what is not seen. It is not seen that as our shopkeeper has spent 6 francs upon one thing, he cannot spend them upon another. It is not seen that if he had not had a window to replace, he would, perhaps, have replaced his old shoes, or added another book to his library. In short, he would have employed his 6 francs in some way, which this accident has prevented. Similarly, production for war is the broken window fallacy writ large. Economic gains produced by government spending on munitions and vehicle manufacture and supplying and equipping the troops are not gains at all. Money has merely been diverted to the pockets of the defense contractors via the political cronies in their back pocket. So why is this important? Because, sadly, this myth is being played on by the warmongering class to once again push the idea that war is good and even necessary for economic progress. This time it is not just manufacture of supplies or munitions that are being touted, but war's ability to justify government spending on investment. No matter how unlikely the threat, or whether it is indeed completely made up, this warped thinking holds that such lies and exaggerations are the answer to our current economic problems.
If we discovered that space aliens were planning to attack, and we needed a massive buildup to counter the space alien threat, and really inflation and budget deficits took secondary place to that, this slump would be over in 18 months. And then if we discovered, whoops, we made a mistake, there aren't actually any space aliens.
So we need Orson Welles, is what you're saying.
No, there was a Twilight Zone episode like this in which scientists fake an alien threat in order to achieve world peace. Well, this time we don't need it. We need it in order to get some fiscal stimulus.
Sadly, it is not just intellectual deficients like Paul Krugman making this case. In a new op-ed in the New York Times, Tyler Cowen of George Mason University argues that technological advances from nuclear research to rocketry to internet and robotics have all been spurred by defense spending, and thus war or threats of war are necessary to continue the advance of civilization. Why these technologies are ends in themselves or more valuable than the tens of millions of lives lost in the previous Great Wars is a question left, predictably, unexamined. Perhaps more to the point, Cowen never addresses why such advances could not take place in the absence of war, or without the motivation of advancing the methods of killing as their impetus. What is most fundamentally upsetting about the mindset that justifies carnage in the name of economic gain is that economic gain is usually measured in abstract concepts like GDP growth or increasing equities markets that have no or even negative correlation with the livelihood of the poorest members of society. income actually shrank by 0.7% for 99% of Americans during the supposed recovery of 2009 to 2011. For the top 1%, income grew 11.5%. This is the type of help that massive government spending on bank bailouts and other stimulus measures invariably creates. In times of war, the situation is even more perverse. Money is created as debt owed to the banks, backed up by the average working taxpayer, to pay politically connected defense contractors to create bombs to kill poor brown people on the other side of the planet. This is called economic progress. Taken to its logical conclusion, there is only one more effective way of solving the problem of poverty.
So, Minister, we've run every viable model through the computer, and it looks like there just are no easy solutions to this recession.
Yeah, raising VAT, cutting VAT, raising interest rates.
Raising interest rates and VAT, lowering income tax and raising VAT.
None of it seems to really help.
Have you tried kill all the poor?
Sir, with respect, we've had this conversation before.
I'm just saying, have you tried it?
No, of course we haven't tried it. We're not going to try it.
I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying run it through the computer, see if it would work.
Whether it would work is not the issue.
So you think it might work? That's pretty right-wing.
No, I don't think it'll work.
I think it might.
It wouldn't.
Why not?
Well, because they do all the, they clean all. We need them for all the things that we don't fancy.
Aren't you thinking of immigrants?
Look, there's an easy solution to this, guys. Just run it through the computer and check.
Well, no.
I can't believe you haven't done it drunk as a joke.
What?
Well, just do it quickly.
I'm not going to do it.
Why not?
Because it's offensive and evil.
I don't see the objection. The computer's not going to be offended. Just run it through. The computer will say, no, it wouldn't help to kill all the poor, and I'll stop going on about it.
Right then.
After all, if we are willing to believe the lie that sacrificing lives is good for the economy, why not go that one step further? This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information on this and other topics, please go to BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information and commentary from James Corbett, please go to CorbettReport.com.